She's like the female James Bond.
She's the safety chick.
The safety chick.
I love that safety chick.
She calls herself the safety chick.
I was a stalking victim, having to learn every possible aspect of personal safety to stay alive.
The safety chick. We love her.
Yeah.
Hey, Kathleen Gallagher, the safety chick here. Welcome. You know, human trafficking is a crime that forcefully exploits women, men, and children. According to the United Nations, human trafficking affects every country in the world, but it's not talked about enough. Trafficking involves transporting someone into a situation of exploitation. This can include forced labor, marriage, prostitution, and organ removal. This kind of exploitation is known by a few different names. Human trafficking, trafficking of persons, and modern slavery are the ones accepted by the U.S. Department of State. It's estimated that internationally, there are between 20 million and 40 million people in modern slavery today. Assessing the full scope of human trafficking is difficult because so many cases often go undetected, something the United Nations refers to as the hidden figure of crime. Reports indicate that a large number of child sex trafficking survivors in the U.S. were at one time in the foster care system. Advocates report a growing trend of traffickers using online social media platforms to recruit and advertise targets of human trafficking. The average age a teen enters the sex trade in the U.S. is 12 to 14 years old. Many victims are runaway girls who were sexually abused as children. But how does this happen? How do these children get pulled into sex trafficking at such a young age? My guest today, Alia Dewees, can shed light on this serious and growing epidemic in our country, as she is a sex trafficking survivor and now helps other victims as an aftercare director and survivor leader for the Safehouse Project, a wonderful organization and friends of this show. Welcome, Alia. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you, opening yourself up and really sharing your personal story with us to really understand what this sex trafficking epidemic is and how to possibly protect, young women, men from becoming victims, whatever.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathleen. I'm happy to be here.
So tell us your story. Tell us how, at such a young age for you, you got pulled into this.
Yeah, well, you definitely touched on that. My story is really typical. It's absolutely not unique to me in any sort of way. I had been sexually abused as a child, and so took that pain and just that hurt and the distortion that caused in my worldview into my young adult and teen years, especially my teen years. And that kind of baggage, for lack of a better term, that sexual abuse without proper therapy and all of the healing that we know now can happen out of that without having that, that creates a vulnerability in people. And I was absolutely part of that population that you were discussing. I wasn't a foster kid, but I had a very unstable home life, didn't have a primary caregiver at all, wasn't raised by my parents. And so those were vulnerabilities I had as well. And was running away pretty consistently, starting at about 12 or 13 years old. So right away, just even in your introduction, I'm like, oh, yeah, those are all absolutely things that I see with myself at that age. And then with the girls that I have the honor to work with now, they're all similarities, right? And so at that age, about 12 or 13, I was really just looking for, where do I fit? How do I get the validation and the love and the acceptance that I'm not getting at home? And because of my previous experiences with abuse, my ideas were, okay, I get that from men. So I was already on my own, like really seeking for a man who was going to pay attention to me. And these guys who have plans to traffic young girls, they already know what they're doing. They know what to look for. They know the kind of girls that are going to go with them quietly and the kind of girls that are going to put up a fight and that people will be looking for and will be much more difficult to deal with, right? And just like with anybody, they're not going to take the route that's going to cause them the most issues. So we go after girls and boys with vulnerabilities. So I met my trafficker on social media.
What social media platform was it?
Definitely aging myself a little bit with this one. Was MySpace. We all remember
MySpace, yes. But I just wanted to kind of, put it out there that this has been going on for decades, right? So the social media, the chat rooms, the years ago, and again, MySpace, that was kind of the beginning of this easy pickings for these predators, right? Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to discuss that, and we'll get into the social media issues later. But anyway, so I'm sorry, you met this guy on MySpace, and
right.
Did you know his age right off the bat?
Yeah, I did. And because of the abuse that I had gone through already, the age difference there didn't make any sort of red flags to me go off. I had already had experiences with men who were much older than me. This guy was 14 years older than me. So when I was 13, he was 27. Now we look at that and we're like, what is wrong? Obviously, this is a guy who has some serious issues, right? Even just being interested in a 13-year-old girl. But at the time I was like, well, I'm so hot that he's attracted to me and not like these other women, right? And I had been forced to grow up so fast that I really already looked at myself as if I was an adult. I think as a lot of teenagers do, regardless of their trauma and what they've been through, it's just part of the teenage existence, right? To think that you're older than you are and wise beyond your years and capable of making these adult decisions is just part of being a teenager. But when you add in the abuse and just the worldview that I was coming out of, it complicated that. And so this relationship started over MySpace. He was not aggressive towards me at all, which I feel like is a big misconception that people have when they assume that someone who is trafficking minors is going to just be snatching them and kidnapping them and they're going to be held against their will. It's much more effective to manipulate and through coercion and really get that person willing to go with you and willing to be attached to you than it would be to grab someone who wants to escape. And so that's definitely the way that he was with me. I formed a really strong attachment to him before I ever even met him. And when we did meet, there were a good few months where it was just him and I, and he would buy me things and he would take me places and he would allow me to have this place where there was, plenty of pot to smoke and alcohol to drink. And I just thought I was having a good time when I would run away from home. And in my eyes, like this was a safe place. I had already been in so many unsafe situations that what he was providing seemed like a much better option. And so by a few months into this relationship, if that's what you want to call it, I had turned 14. And he started explaining to me the things that he was doing in order to afford the life he was giving me, the things that he was buying me, and just the things that we would go do. And he started explaining to me that he would go with these women who were older than him, who wanted to have sex with him, and they would pay him. And now I look back and I'm like, gosh, that was just a lie that he was telling me so that it would normalize what he was going to be asking me to do. Right. And so I was already thinking, this is what he's doing. Why like, why would it be an issue for me in the time?
It's because why would you at this point of your life with no one really guiding you in it, why would you think any different? Why? I understand what you're saying is like, this is normal. Oh, you're going to go and do this for sex. And I think when you and I have talked before, it's the mindset of what equals what? Sex equals money. Sex equals things. Sex equals love, And so to get to really understand the mind of a, adolescent girl and the ease with which these predators manipulate. So, oh, I get it. So anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, you're fine. So absolutely. He was normalizing the distorted view of sex that I already had from my previous relationships. He was just building off of the grooming that I had already experienced. He didn't start the grooming process. He picked up where it had left off. And so by the time that he explained to me that he wasn't able to make enough money to provide for the hotel rooms that we were staying in, or to buy me the things or the food that I was asking for anymore by himself, and that I was going to need to help, I was already so deep into my connection with him and had already been so influenced by what he had been telling me, and that I just kind of went along with it, and he said, like, it's just going to be this one time. It's my friend and it's going to really help. And I thought, okay, yeah, this one time, he's been doing this for me. Who am I to say that I should be doing something else? If this was good enough for him, then it's absolutely good enough for me. I was already having sex with him at that point, so it wasn't like this big scary thing to have this one other person there. And I thought, this will just be in and out, and it'll be okay. And within 6 months, this one person that he had told me this one time turned into, every time I would run away with him, the only thing we would do would be in a hotel room having people come in and out. And I never got to have a say in who, when, where, what, how much. I just really had turned into a commodity for him at that point.
So all of the sudden, you went from, a relatively normal relationship that had been for several months to then this one time of, oh, it's just my buddy, just come on over to his place. How quickly did it escalate into renting a hotel room and multiple men coming in and out?
Yeah, less than 6 months. I would say somewhere between 4 and 6 months.
And at that time, just to kind of get in the mind of you at that point, were you scared? Were you horrified? Were you just like, oh, well, this is what I got to do? I mean, did you have any recollection or any self thoughts of, this isn't right, this has changed?
Yeah. So that's a complicated question and a complicated answer. But there's that saying or phrase or whatever, where they talk about how they put a frog in water, right? And they start turning up the dial on the water, and the frog doesn't jump out. If you had put a frog in boiling water from the get-go, it would have just jumped out right away. But if you slowly turn up the heat, the frog doesn't realize that it's being boiled, essentially. And that was really what was happening for me. It was only getting a little bit worse each time.
So you're 14 years old at this point, right? And so basically, for the next 4 years of your life, you basically were groomed to become an escort. You got into porn, stripping. I mean, full-on sex working, prostitution, correct? So
yeah,
take me through. I mean, how does this occur? Is it not natural, but is it a process, like one thing leads to another?
Yeah, I would say that in my case, it definitely was. And the reason being there was no intervention, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case for everyone else. If someone is able to get the services and resources that they need after that kind of exploitation to find healing and to move on with their life, then that doesn't have to be the case at all. However, that wasn't what happened for me. I didn't get the resources, I didn't get the therapy, I didn't have the empowerment that I needed to rewrite my life and to really take control. And so I think that's the desire of every abuse survivor, regardless of what their specific circumstances were or their specific abuse. That desire to take back control is there when it's been taken from you for so long. And so when I turned 18, that really was what I was trying to do. I was trying to run from the experiences that I had and find a way to make them my own and continue in this life that had been set out for me. There weren't any other paths for me to take. At least that's what I had been told and how it seemed. And so I thought, how can I deal with the lot that I've been given in the best way possible? I hadn't finished high school. I didn't have any sort of access to continual schooling or to really just any other options. And I think that's the misconception that we get about women in the sex industry in any form is that this was a choice, right? And yes, that's true, but it's a choice of the choiceless, and that's a problem. So
That's
for me,
that's such a good point. It's a choice of the choiceless. And also the perception that with women, and I think, in our culture today with the way the sex industry is portrayed in music and in everything, it's kind of glorified or romanticized, right? That the woman is in control. And I heard you say that when you were 18, you felt like this was a way to take control. I'm going to go and make a movie and be an escort and be in control. I'm not going to worry about those guys hooking me up at a hotel. I'm going to take control and become that. Was that your thought process at the time?
absolutely, that was my thought process. I thought in this industry, I'm going to have the opportunity to say what I will do, what I won't do, who I'm willing to do it with, and how much I'm willing to charge or get paid. And if I feel uncomfortable, I'll leave. Which those were all things that had never been allowed in the experience that I was in from 14 to 18, where I was trafficked. And so I walked in very naively, thinking that this was what I was going to be experiencing. And it definitely was not.
And that's the thing, is that with the way the sex world is portrayed right now, you're getting this vibe that there's these strong, powerful women in control of their careers, so to speak. And I want you to speak on that a little bit. And again, I always say, I mean, this is not a moral show. I mean, I don't care if you dance on a pole or you're a soccer mom or you're a soccer mom and dance on a pole. My whole thing is I just want you to be safe, right? And I want you to feel good about yourself with the choices that you're making, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, at what point did you all of a sudden realize, you're going along in the different industries, you're dancing now at a club, doing all those things. When did it start to hit you that, you know what, I'm kind of not in control here? Like, this isn't empowerment, this is exploitation. At what point of your life did you have that, if ever?
So it was pretty early on that I would get glimpses of that. But there were enough people around me reinforcing that belief system that I thought, okay, you know what? In every job, there's going to be people you don't like. There's going to be difficult customers who make your life hell. In every job, there's going to be days that you don't want to go to work. And so I just kind of took that as being, this is still that normal, right? That we had discussed. And so, but there were some days, even from the beginning, that I went, this is just not it. This is not the answer. And this is a big lie that I've been sold. However, the options to leave were zero. I didn't
And
have
let me,
any.
how hard is it to leave? I mean, is it dangerous? Are you still like, beholding to people, to whoever the owners, producers, whoever is paying your bill, that kind of thing? Are you free to leave if you want, or did you feel that you would be in danger if you chose to leave?
Yeah, so it's not the same for everyone. In the situations that I was in for the majority as an adult, it wouldn't have been dangerous to leave physically. Socially, it would have been a nightmare. I would have lost everyone that I knew. I would have lost every single person that was important in my life. I would have been shunned, essentially. So it was more of that social pressure to stay, as well as that just financial and economic pressure of, okay, if I leave, where am I going? I don't have these benefactors to pay for my housing anymore. I won't have a car to drive. I had at 19, I had my first daughter, and it was like, how am I going to provide um, for her here in Southern California without this income and no other resources? So that stayed the case for me until about the last 6 months in the industry, when the answer changes. And yes, it would have been very dangerous for me to leave at that point.
Why do you say that? What,
So there had been a shift in what I was experiencing. I
where were you at this time? Were you in a club, or were you escorting, or
was
what?
all of them,
All of them. You
all
were
three.
you were a multitasker, is what you
I
were.
was. I was
Okay.
still entrepreneur, is what I thought of
There
myself.
you go. Girls got to
Um,
do what a girl's got to do. That's the title of my first book. I'm just saying.
yeah,
Anyway, so
yeah. So I was dancing, I was escorting, and I was still working in porn at this time. And actually, what happened was I met a guy at the strip club that I was basically like thinking, this is going to be one of my escorting clients. He has a lot of money. He can provide for me in a good way. This is going to be one of my major clients. And so I started spending a lot of time with this guy, and he kind of flipped the script on me, to be honest. When I look back, I'm like, oh man, he got me. But what I thought I was doing was taking this guy for all of his money. And what he was actually doing was getting me completely dependent on him. And so once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh my gosh, my phone is in his name. I'm no longer driving my own car. I'm driving his car. The place that I live is in his name. I really had nothing outside of him. And it was then that he started taking control over who I was going to be doing my shoots with, who my other dates were going to be, when I was allowed to go where, who I was allowed to communicate with. So even that semblance of control that I had before when I was in the industry and making my own schedule, making my own decisions, which is a nuanced situation in and of itself, but the
right.
semblance of control that I had was really pulled out from under me. And I knew at that point, like, this guy's not going to just let me leave. I had started to think, okay, it might be time to get out of the industry. The wool that I had had over my eyes for the years prior had really gone away, and I was starting to see, like, okay, this is what I'm really in. And so I had started making plans around the time that I met him of, okay, I've got a plan. I'll be out in 3 years. I'm going to do these things. And, uh, and that was not the case.
Oh boy. And so that, I mean, that's it. So, you found yourself yet again in a situation where, yeah, you're not in control, and without even realizing it, you're being exploited yet again. So what was the epiphany? How, and, I want to hear how Safehouse Project came into your life. Um,
Yeah.
but what was the epiphany, and how did you get out and to where you are today?
Yeah. So those last 6 months, as difficult as they were also the times where I was making the most amount of money. It was easy for me to look at the industry and be like, okay, it's terrible and I don't want to be here, but these are the things that it's given me. I have this place to live. I'm driving this car. I'm wearing these kinds of clothes and these shoes, and I have this jewelry. And so I still had a semblance of like the lie that I was living, or at least a reason to keep going. And there was one night that he was telling me, hey, I'm going to take you here and this is what you're going to do. And I said, no. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. I'm not down, not into this. And his response to that was to drop me off in this agricultural district in Southern California with no shoes, no jacket. I was in like booty shorts and a sports bra. Didn't have my phone. He took my purse. And that was this moment where I was like, felt like I was presented with a mirror, right? Like, this is what the industry has really given you. You have nothing of your own. And in the end, when you take off all of the external things and the diamonds and the Louboutins and all of those things, this is what you're left with. And what's different now from when you were 14? And
what a moment. What an incredible moment and epiphany for you. Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah. So I had only ever known one girl who left the industry. And I had watched her for a few years from afar on social media and from pictures I had seen of her. And I'd seen that there was a difference, right? And that she wasn't going back. So at that point, I was desperate enough that I knew that I had three answers. I could go back to him and probably end up dead soon. I could kill myself, or I could go do something that I had seen one girl one time change her life. And so I thought these other two options are going to be there. So let me try this one. And if this doesn't work, then I still have those other two options to fall back on. And so I reached out to this organization that has restorative care programs across the country for women leaving human trafficking and sexual exploitation. And they took me in, and I spent a year there just really working on like my healing, working on what were the things that made me vulnerable in the first place to these situations, and how do I change them?
That's incredible. And is that Safehouse Project? Is that the...
So that's one of the organizations that Safehouse Project works with. Safehouse Project does have their own restorative care programs. They stand in the gap of funding and mentoring and building up the programs that are already doing that kind of work.
They're phenomenal. I've had them on before, and hopefully to our listeners and our viewers, go to my website and look up Safehouse Project, because it's incredible. It's as you're living proof. I mean, you are living proof. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of, what a life. Life is not easy. We all know that. I mean, everybody has something, but to hear your story, and I really hope, by sharing your story, it's so important to put faces to the names of sex trafficking and, sex working and the whole thing. I really feel that it's important, and more importantly, what you're doing, what your journey was, what you've been through, is helping so many others just by you having the courage to step forward and get out. If there was one piece of advice you could give someone that is listening right now, that is in the situation that you were in, what would it be?
That there's options. There's a choice. And there are people waiting. This isn't something that you need to step out and you're going to be an island. There's a whole team of us that are looking back and ready to reach out our hand and just offer whatever kind of support you need and whatever kind of support that you want. And there's plenty of ways to get out. They're just not ways that have been publicized, but the options are out there. And so there's actually the human trafficking hotline,
right,
that referrals and links with us at Safehouse Project and with a lot of other amazing organizations. And if what you've been walking through is any sort of forced labor, whether it be sex labor, sex work, or anything like that by forced manipulation or coercion, that's the definition of trafficking.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing. A lot of people are in situations like you were, not realizing, like, they do the flip and switch on you, right? And so you think you're going along fine working, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. And that is the issue. So, you know, my goal for these shows is always to, you know, someone out there that listens, someone out there that you know has an issue, is a potential victim or victim. We're giving you the tools to get out of a you know, negative situation. We're giving you the tools to live a more empowered life. And that's what this is all about. So we'll have the hotline number, you know, all the links, Safehouse Project and everything on my website, all our social media. I so appreciate you being here today. It was absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So what a story. And again, as I say, the reason we do this show is to highlight things that you might not realize every day are going on in America. And you might have an opinion about things. You might, you know, like I said, I don't care if you dance on a pole or you're a soccer mom or both. It's like, I have no moral judgment on people. What I really want are people to make smart personal safety choices and stay safe from crime, however that is. So, as with all shows, I'm going to read some safety chick rules of, if you are out there, if you are in a situation, or more importantly, how to become safe against becoming a sex trafficking victim. Here are some tips. And again, they'll be on my website. But so if you're going out to meet a date or someone that you haven't met before, you know, always tell, or anywhere, always tell a family member or trusted friend where you are going and when you'll return. You know, set up safety words with loved ones that you can use on a phone call or in a text to indicate an emergency. Never let a partner or employer take possession of your passport, identification, or other important documents. Memorize the phone number, and this is true, of a trusted family member or friend, because so many times, you know, we have our numbers programmed in our phone. And so if your phone's taken away or you can't readily use it, you know, memorize the phone number of someone really close to you so you can go to, you know, somewhere to use another phone to get help. Carry your phone or a phone card at all times. And that's it. Even if you have to get a burner phone, have some type of phone with you, along with cash or a debit card in case you need money to pay, like taxi fare or another means of escape. Do not hesitate to call 911 anytime you believe you're in immediate danger. Do not believe any story or offer, and this is key. Do not believe any story or offer that seems too good to be true. You know, that's key. And as you hear Alia's story, you know, sex traffickers are very, very manipulative, and they know how to get right to a young adolescent girl. Remember, if it seems too good to be true, something's up. Be very careful on social media. Please don't give out personal information online. Don't go and meet someone that you don't really know their background one time. And if you are going to meet someone that you've met online over a course of time, meet them in a very well-lit public area in the day until you really get to know them. Avoid being alone with strangers. Remain in, as I said, well-lit places when you first meet someone new. I mean, these are just common sense tips that could save you or someone you know from being exploited and possibly a sex trafficking victim. Well, I want to say, first of all, on you know, my Instagram at The Safety Chick, Facebook, Kathleen Gallagher, The Safety Chick, Twitter at The Safety Chick, safetychick.com. I love getting all your messages. Any questions that you have, any thoughts on shows that you want me to do, any topics that you want me to cover, keep the messages coming. Because remember, Caring about your personal safety is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. Till next time.
She's like the female James Bond.
She's safety chick.
The safety chick.
I love that safety chick. That's
She calls
what
herself the safety chick.
I was a stalking victim, having to learn every possible aspect of personal safety to stay alive.
The safety chick. We love her.
Yeah.